All right, we're live. Welcome to the Liquid Swan channel. Um, this is your host, Liquid Swan, coming from the Mountain Fortress in British Columbia. And I'm here with CallOfTheShieldmaiden, who is the chief editor of Corncrake magazine. Say hello.
Um, Hello, everyone.
And I'm here to ask her a couple questions about her work. The first question is, what are the origins of this magazine, Corncrake?
Well, because I grew up, I was raised kind of like Amish,
Mm-hmm.
and I observed that they kind of have their own, because they don't do, TVs and movies. They read a lot, so they have their own periodicals,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really wholesome, and people from the community write the stories in them. So that's kind of, I guess, the how I wanted the magazine to look practically. But it's just because so much stuff these days is just a bit degenerate.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's so many live streams out there, which is great for other kinds of ideas, but with something like stories and that kind of art, it doesn't do well on the live stream form. It looks better like presented in a magazine. So I wanted to be able to showcase all the positive creativity that's out there, and it needs a better format than live streams and that kind of thing. But yeah, I really like short stories. They're short enough that you can get invested and read for a period of time, but then it's not as long and complicated. So they're a really great medium.
Yeah, so you're not
For
stuck.
people.
You're not stuck like reading a long story. You can kind of just like let it go in a sense, but
Yeah,
it
because
still
I have
stimulates
all the
you.
Wheel of yeah, I have the Wheel of Time novels. There's 14 of them. 14 novels, and they're hundreds of pages each. It's like that could even take a whole year to read them.
Yeah, it's quite a commitment,
And
especially
that's,
in like this day and age. People don't want to like commit to maybe people don't like to commit to such a long, um, drawn out story.
yeah. So with the Meg, I have five stories in the first one. The second one's going to have seven.
Hmm.
So because they're short stories, and I have a lot of variety in there as well. So I like stories from all genres, and then I have new writers like yourself, and then there's classic authors as well. Because sometimes these people are famous for some like massive novel that may be turned into a movie. But the thing is, they often wrote other stuff as well, and that includes short stories, which no one
Hmm.
knows about. But it means you have this really high quality story from this famous author. But half of them, I didn't even know they wrote short stories, which
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is really great.
And short stories are often like hard to write because you kind of have to get to the conclusion pretty quick, and have to be somewhat packed because otherwise people might lose interest. So yeah, it is interesting about short stories, and there's not a lot of publishers of this in a sense, right?
Yeah, everyone's passionate about their novels, but I guess a short story follows the same structure as a novel. You still have to have the introduction and the plot points and the conclusion. Everything is just in a mini format. So I kind of like writing them just because I can explore this idea, or write about something I'm interested in, and I can do it in an afternoon instead of because I haven't published them or anything, but I've written a few books of like 50,000 words each. It
Yeah,
takes a long time.
yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, I like the short stories, and when you're busy, you can just read a quick short story, and it's good.
It's interesting too how you took the Amish or Mennonite thing and you brought it in to like mainstream in a sense. What was it
Well, they're
like?
very
What was it like growing up that way? Go ahead.
no. I was just going to say, like, they have. I mean, they are very insular communities, but the thing is, they're providing for their communities everything that the community needs,
Hmm.
and they're providing entertainment for themselves. I think it's why they have such a high retention rate of young people. because
Mm,
young people don't need to leave the community even like for entertainment. They have everything they need there. So I
that's
just
very
want to
that's very
contribute
interesting.
towards
Yeah,
that.
that's very cool. Because like you don't really hear much about them on the outside, I suppose. A lot of they seem like a mystery in some ways.
I think probably because in a way they're a bit boring. I mean, like, like they're just living their lives and doing their thing. There's no dramatic drama and politics to them. So in a way, I kind of understand why they get ignored. But it just gets a bit frustrating, though, for me personally, because I know all of this stuff about all the different types of, Amish, Mennonites, and Hutterites, and then other people don't even know of their existence, and they ask questions like, "Would the government allow us to live, in a way similar to them?"
Mm.
And it's like, well, there's these people living this way, and it's just I wish more people knew about them because they have a good thing going on there, obviously.
Yeah, there's a healthy lifestyle to that, like you're not like being degenerate. Well, I don't know if they use like a lot of chemical fertilizers or whatnot, like modern technologies that really like reduce the nutrition of the food. But I don't know, maybe they do. But if they don't, then they're probably going to be better off in the end.
Yeah, it depends on the group. There's a lot of variety there, from those who are horses and bucks.
Yeah.
So there's no
Um.
really like,
Yeah. There's no like set thing you're saying.
yeah, because there's just so much variety to the different groups.
Yeah. So I have some more questions for you. How many volunteers do you have right now, like outside of writers? How many people are involved?
There's like two of them. I have an editor, a graphics advisor, and then there's other people who don't really have a formal role, but they answer questions when I ask, like what to put on a social media post and that sort of thing.
Okay. So it's a relatively tight ship. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I suppose in a way it is, but I've been like very grateful and surprised in a way that so many people are all volunteering, and to me it's kind of a lot of people because I kind of thought maybe I'd be doing this on my own, but now I have two people working with me. Then there's all the people doing the website building, and all the people who want to write. It's yeah, there's actually kind of a lot of people there. I think for something that's all volunteer and involved.
I think it's one of those instances of if you build, they'll come. Um, because I haven't been like myself, I haven't been looking for this particular thing like in the past. But when it came up, I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. So I like, well, I basically signed up right away um, because it's a good outlet. You know, there's not a lot of outlets like this, and I think it's great that you're taking this on because I mean I don't have the time to be an editor, so it's nice to have
Yes.
other teammates.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a bunch of work putting together a magazine and the sheer terror of publishing it and then looking around for spelling mistakes.
Oh yeah, that's brutal. It happens
Oh.
to me. Like I'll make like a big post or whatever, and then I'll have like some really stupid spelling mistake. It's usually probably an autocorrect. Like I typed it right, then like the
Yeah.
computer changes it, and then I go back and it just sounds absolutely retarded. And then uh yeah, then luckily I can edit it. It's not like a magazine where it's out and it's gone.
Yeah, because with it's like the modern software can't cope with. In my case, it's anything that's kind of any kind of older style of English writing. Because I have in the first magazine The Little Brawlet Alan, which is an Irish fairy tale, and that was written back in the 1800s, I believe. All those names in there, though, those Celtic style names, like my software just has massive red lines under every second sentence throughout that whole thing because it's like it just can't cope with even sentence structures that are a bit back to front, like how in the olden days they talked a bit differently with the arrangements and the words, and my software just can't deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Back when English wasn't necessarily a worldwide trade language, that bastardized
Yeah.
every single sentence. But what can we do about that? Orwell had some things to say. Um, so I got another couple of questions for you. What are the main goals of Corncrake? Are there any longer term goals, or are you just kind of going with the flow?
Well, there's a little bit of go with the flow because I don't have a lot of examples and like other publications to kind of look at how they're functioning. I feel
Hmm.
I'm a bit in the wild with this.
So
But
yeah,
no, I was just saying, like, I do want the magazine to kind of build up a sense of community though, because I have the, stories submissions. I'm open to everyone. I'm not just looking for famous names. Like the humblest of contributors, like I want to hear from them. So I'm
yeah,
hoping, like, if it's a creative outlet for the casual writer as much as it is for someone that's very passionate about writing, that in a way it can be seen as, because a lot of big name magazines, like I keep using that as an example.
sorry,
It's
can you say that again?
completely.
It blanked out when you said that.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying, like with big magazines out there, like Women's Weekly or Vogue. I don't know any magazine really. It's something you buy. It's not something you're emotionally invested in or that you feel any kind of connection with.
Hmm.
So what I want with the Corncrake is I want the people who read it to feel a connection with it.
Okay.
Because like with the periodicals I read as a child, like I could be friends with someone who was published in them. You read a name and you recognize that name as someone you know who is behind the pen name. So it's not something that's produced somewhere else and sold to you. It's more something that you help create.
That's an interesting. It's a good way to go about it. Um, yeah, because like as you're saying from your example from your small town, to actually kind of feel like part of the community is probably big plays a big role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Tell me about yourself. Like, where did you come from? What's your background? Like, don't dox yourself, but um, give us a little overview of you.
Well, I like to think my accent is still Australian, even though plenty of people here in England don't pick up on it, or they only pick up on one word. So I'm fooling a lot of people. But yeah, I spent most of my life in Australia. And yeah, other than being raised Amish, which is not strictly Amish. If anyone knows what Mennonite is, Mennonite, but I always say Amish just because so many people don't know.
Well, there's also Mennonites where I live, so I'm pretty familiar.
Yeah,
I saw one just the
but
other day, actually.
I've just gotten used to saying Amish because when you try to explain something to people who barely even know what an Amish is, it's just how do you explain something to someone who doesn't know the
Well,
remotest scrap of
my
information?
just for anyone listening, Amish are basically the same as Mennonites, not quite, but they don't use the Amish don't use electricity, and the Mennonites do either use limited amounts of sort of modern technology or less. Like they don't like say no to all electricity, but they sort of live like a more I don't know 1800s lifestyle, I suppose. Amish maybe go back a little bit further, but I mean that's not
Yeah,
exactly
and
probably right, but I think that's pretty close.
yeah, and there's the Hutterites as well. Like I've lived on Hutterites, so it's like Mennonites but on a commune.
Oh yeah.
Do you know a lot about Hutterites?
I didn't know that they lived on communes. I assumed they were somewhat similar to the Amish or Mennonites, but
They
uh,
have modern technology, so they're a bit more like Mennonites. But then at the same time, because they're living on their clothes, like shared property and everything,
yeah.
in some ways they might be more old fashioned like the Amish and less like the Mennonites, even though they all have cars and that kind of thing.
What's the how do they pay taxes? Like I guess they just create products, sell them, pay taxes on that, or how's the government treat
Yeah,
them?
I don't know the details, and they're all over. maybe they register themselves as a charity because the people living on the communities don't get a wage.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I think vast numbers of these communities, women just don't know how to drive and don't have licenses because it's not never they never need to. But
Yeah.
as far as I know, there's something to do with charity status, and yes, they all have industries that they like. They're usually in the country or in rural areas, so it's farming. And the ones I was at in Saskatchewan, they had massive pig farms, and there are a lot of paddocks as well. I don't know what products they sold, but yeah, they do run really full on intense farming operations because they have the manpower.
Mm. I was curious. Like, I had another question about that. Okay, so how does the like young people, how do they meet each other there, and are they like sort of like now arranged marriages, or like what goes on with that, like to keep the community going?
Well, you have to be careful in some communities because they're being very, very bad. A lot
Sorry,
of people in
can you
these.
say that? Can you say that again? That your audio broke up.
Oh, so in these communities, a lot of them are kind of they're not inbred, but people be marrying their third cousins a lot.
Oh, based.
Um,
Well, third
but
cousins. I
they
heard.
don't.
I heard third cousins like the way that you have the healthiest kids.
Yeah, but
This
you
is
don't want
from
to be doing
Professor.
that for 10 generations in a row because
Well,
then you just.
I heard this from John Dutton. Apparently, like that's like our natural arrangement because third cousins is basically like indistinguishable from a random member of the public. But I know, does it result in them
Sure.
being like inbred?
But I mean, the problem with them is that they have large families. Everyone marries each other. Outsiders do not join,
Hmm.
so their genetic pool gets smaller and smaller.
Oh, based.
Well, they're going to end up inbred if they don't start
Well,
having outsiders joining.
as long as they, oh, then Iceland has this problem too, where they have like a lot of everyone's related in Iceland. Like I think the average relation is fourth cousin or fifth cousin, with just strangers. So, uh, and that's far enough away that you're not going to have genetic illness. I think if you're second cousin or closer or an equivalent, then you're at like risk of genetic like health issues. But I don't know. Maybe there's some unique thing with if you do third cousin for like 100 generations in a row. Maybe that'll be a problem. I mean, that is third cousin is it does mean your grandparents are first cousins, um, which is relatively
Yeah,
close.
I don't know the specifics, but these people don't have a lot of people joining, so there's a
Well,
limited pool of people.
how big are these communities anyways? Are they like 200 people?
I think when the communities tend to be half children because they have big families.
Mm-hmm.
I
Based.
It really depends, but like 100 people is fine. I think when they get a few hundred, I think they kind of start getting a bit large. But the details and the numbers, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been to a community or have heard of one with literally hundreds of people there. I've
Oh
only
yeah.
ever known them to have more than 50, but definitely not hundreds.
Okay.
That's not something I'm aware
That's
of.
probably a problem because I think you need at least like around 150, 200 to keep the genetics fresh. Um,
But the thing is, with these communities, there are other communities around them or in different parts of the US and Canada which have there's similar religious beliefs and so on, and they do intermarry.
okay, so they
And
like ship out
communities,
a daughter or son or something like
but sometimes someone's cousins will live on a different community,
that. Oh,
or
okay.
their parent is from a different community. So it's not like these communities are like they are insular, but they're not like they have all their other communities that are the same as which they associate with.
So is there like a patriarch in this organization or like a matriarch? How does it work?
Well, it's definitely a patriarch, not a matriarch. But their structure is. I know with Mennonites they'll have two ministers, a deacon, or is it three ministers and a deacon, and so basically 4 to 5 guys in charge, and the bishop will be in charge of a few churches. I
Okay.
think with the Hutterites it's similar. They have a few guys in charge. There's not just one, unless it's a rogue community like the one I lived at in Tasmania, because
So
that
it's
one
like,
was a branch of
oh, okay.
yeah. So the one in Tasmania was a branch of a community in Minnesota, but because it was small and it was an offshoot, they started to do their own thing, and
How
and
fu-
they ended up with one guy in charge. And do you know what he had everyone in the community call him?
Master?
Daddy.
Daddy. Okay.
He
It's
got
a little bit
everyone.
kinky.
Yeah, exactly. When I found that out, I was amused for forever because it was just so funny. Like, because to them, they wouldn't know what the associations with that word is at all. So they're innocently calling this man daddy, and I'm just over here snickering about it.
That's pretty funny. It's kind of based, but I mean, it's probably more fucked up than anything else. How did they
Yeah.
get? How long ago did they move from Minnesota?
So they started this community in like 2006, and then after COVID, they decided they weren't making enough converts, or they were scared of the COVID response or something, and they packed up and went to South America, Paraguay. But
Oh,
because
what?
because the community was no longer legally attached to the Minnesota one, so they could just basically the Minnesota community bought this land, resources into it. This new guy came along, sold it, took the money and everything, and went off to South America with the people from the community.
So they went to Paraguay. That's like my Exodus idea. Well, do you know where they went roughly?
I don't know if it was Paraguay or it was some South American country.
Probably
I can
Paraguay,
find
because
out,
like
but I don't know
they got great
specifically.
farmland and like it's super easy to immigrate there if you're white, Um,
I think they wanted more involvement in the community, like starting a school or something. And just in Australia, as a first world country, there isn't beggars on street corners that you can help in a kind of old fashioned missionary type way. And I think that's what they were watching.
hmm. That's pretty cool. It's a more interesting story than maybe you think, um, because like I've never heard of anything like that in my life. Like, you maybe think about writing about it because it's like, you know it's endless. Oh, not endlessly interesting, but very interesting. Um,
Well, a lot of American religions that try to start things in Australia, and 10 to 20 years later, it's nothing. So
they just get sort of wiped out by
yeah,
one
sorry.
thing or another.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's just like Australians aren't religious. We're very
Hmm.
more European and English, obviously, culturally speaking. So yeah, when these people kind of come along and dictate, like Mennonites do, what kind of clothes you wear, or expecting people to give up their property and live on a community, there just doesn't vibe.
So you weren't obviously born on this community. Your family moved there.
Well, my family was involved with the Beachy Amish when I was born. So from the beginning, Mennonite has been the religion I've known.
Hmm.
And the Beachy Amish didn't get very far. So when I was about 10, we were living on the community in Tasmania. So
Well,
it's just until I was in my mid-teens, Mennonite and Hutterite was kind of one or another group. That was what my life was involved with.
what was it like being like in a sort of pseudo communistic or commune like living? What was that like compared to what you do now?
Well, it's not something I like. I don't like literally having nothing.
Hmm.
I prefer a level of independence. I'm more interested in the cute and stereotypical English village where everyone knows each other rather than living on a literal colony.
Hmm. Did you like have to like feed the chickens and stuff, or what was going on there? What was your role?
Yeah, no, if you're a girl, you wash the dishes. You don't feed chickens. That's for the boys to do.
Oh, like do you have to like mend clothes and stuff, or?
Well, it really depends because I was only there when I was 10. So because there's so many other older adult women, yeah, they would do that kind of thing. Whereas a kid like me does boring jobs like washing dishes and sweeping the floor. That's, you know,
If you had stayed there, would you have like been a arranged marriage with some guy, or by the time
but
you're
they don't really
16?
arrange. They don't arrange marriages like, for example, Indians do.
Yeah.
But of
Well, that
course, there's pressure to be married, and everyone is interested in your marriage. So
yeah. So like you won't. They don't do like dances, I suppose, but they'll say like they might like make you wash the dishes, and then they'll send like Jimmy in, and maybe he gets to see you, and then you get maybe he's like the one guy you interact with, so or something like that.
I mean, some maybe someone's mother would arrange for that, but I just, as far as I'm observing, these people are meeting each other and getting acquainted with each other in a more natural manner.
Okay, that's it's interesting. You don't hear a lot about that, you know.
Well, it's
Um,
just there's expectation of marriage, and everyone is eligible for marriage. They've been raised to support their community. No, there's no video game addicted men there and fat, screeching women, right?
there's no
So here
porn.
are people. Yeah, so people are eligible for marriage. They can't fool around, if you will, if they are not married. So I
Yeah.
just think the coupling up and it just happens naturally. That I don't think they have to be like forcing people to
Is
to
that
to get married necessarily.
is there a lot of competition between the sexes? Like not like men versus women, but like women versus women for a guy, or guys versus guys for a woman. Like are they like do they have like there's a really good looking woman? Do they all like kind of gravitate towards her, or like ugly women left out, or ugly dudes are they left out?
So because by the time I got to my mid-teens, I was no longer involved. So it's hard for
Hmm.
me to observe
Oh,
that
okay.
sort of thing.
You may not
Um,
remember either.
I, Look, it's a bit possible, but there's certainly no way on earth you to go to an event and seeing a group of women surrounding one man. Like a woman can't really pursue a man if she wants to keep her reputation intact. Like you can't be seen,
Oh yeah,
you
you
know,
got to do the secret stuff, like
flirting and being inappropriate in public. You could probably make eyes at him, but
you drop a
and
handkerchief or something.
yeah, and also if the other, the people, the elders in the church, or your parents, if they see you trying to act like you want multiple people in your life, they're going to have an issue with that.
Yeah, they'll shut that
So
down.
you can't. Yeah, yeah,
Thought patrol.
yeah, yeah. Because they're not having. Your daughter will get a bad reputation if she goes around flirting. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah. All right. So what is my final question? What is your philosophy on life, and what do you say about things such as faith or mind?
Sorry, I don't
I can,
fully understand.
so what is your like sort of philosophy on life, and um, on things such as faith or mind, like thinking?
Sorry, I'm a bit of a peasant. Those sound like
Oh, no
kind of
problem. No problem.
intellectual words. I don't know. If I
What's
had a
what?
life philosophy, I like to
There you go.
kind of go with the flow to a certain extent, but I'm also interested in looking at tradition and looking at how people did things with the past. Because I don't really believe in the future we can go back to the past, but we can create a new future. So I'm more interested in looking at what worked in the past and how that can be recreated in the future. I suppose in a way the Corncrake is a bit of that because it's something that this niche religious group does, but I'm trying to see if it can be adapted and brought back to life.
Hmm. So your philosophy is sort of like the only way out is through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if people don't know, we sort of share myself and Corncrake as well as others. We share this idea that society is sort of degenerating, and we have to find a way to rebuild or build something so that it doesn't degenerate into like the Kali Yuga. Maybe that's inevitable. Like I kind of think it's sort of inevitable, but even if it is, you sort of have to build once you get out of it. And these sorts of projects like Corncrake and basket weaving and such like through shieldings and Beowulf, it's good to think about the future because you don't want to go into the future thinking like, oh, everything's all, you don't want to be black pilled, like the whole way.
Yeah,
You
I
have to
don't
see a
like
light
that.
at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I think one of the saddest things to me is people being isolated and down a community. So I'm hoping, if people can contribute to the Corncrake, regardless of how well known or how many followers they have, or yeah, and then if they see the names of people they know in the magazine, it will help build, And I do keep politics out of the Corncrake as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
So
purely implicit, if anything. But that's just the way stories are.
yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have much more to ask you, and we're coming up just past 30 minutes now. Do you have anything else you want to add? Any final
Yes,
words?
people should definitely check out the website. It's corncrakemag.com. And if anyone wants to contribute, there is the submissions page in there. Yeah, so the first issue is out, and the second one should be out in about a fortnight. So it's
All
something
right.
to look forward to.
All right. I'll put that in the comments once my video is up, the website. And if anybody has any questions, could they reach you at that website as well?
Yeah, all the contact details and all the links to the social medias are on there.
And you're on Twitter at Corncrake Mag.
Yeah, that should tag me in it. Yeah.
Okay. And awesome. All right. Well, thank you for your lovely attention and interview, um, answering these questions. Thanks for coming on the channel,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
and you have a good rest of your day.